Chapter 2, New York, 1962. Carol, move! I want you to stand directly behind Lillian in the lineup. For these next few days of rehearsal, you need to pay close attention to her every move. A step-at dancer must be focused at all times. Synchronicity takes work, attention to detail, and focus. Lillian has the it factor, so watch her closely. Her arms extend fluidly with the utmost femininity. Sophia spread her own arms widely, mimicking the grace of Lillian while disguising her own thick Dominican accent, attempting a British one instead, to emphasize the level of poise and sophistication Lillian possessed. Sophia continued, rising on the ball of one foot as she raised the other leg high. Her lean, long, muscular legs kick sharp and strong. Watch the angles of her shoulders and the way her eyes follow the direction of her hands. Sophia studied her own hand with her own eyes as she slowly raised her arm and passed it high across her face. Yeah, Carol, mimic Lillian's every move. Heck, all of you. Imitate how Lillian propels her body. She projects herself as a true dancer should during the dance. If you don't have the drive to dance, why the heck are you here? Get out of my lineup and stop wasting my time. Sophia Martinez danced as a young woman in the Dominican Republic before she moved to New York. She worked on Broadway in theatrical productions for her career before being hired to work in with the Step-Ets dance group. Her frizzy gray hair, raspy voice, crow's feet, and the intense realist attitude were the only way to detect her ripe age. Sophia was still toting the body of a 20-year-old dancer in her peak, with charm and style to match. She could still do the steps and shake those muscular glutes at 63 years young. The Step-Ets were known and admired worldwide. Sophia wanted to keep it that way. She shouted and fussed until each movement spoke for itself. Sophia didn't care if she hurt anyone's feelings. She wanted results, and she got them. The team was great. All girls were required to be in the height range of 5'7" to 5'9" and maintain a weight between 125 to 145 pounds to promote a uniform appearance on stage. The kicks were required to reach a certain height, and all girls were expected to move fluidly as one. Sophia ran a tight ship, and it never sank. The gym where they practiced smelled of sweaty feet in leather mixed with old varnished wood. The floorboards creaked obnoxiously, but who could hear them between Sophia yelling and the dance steps landing? To walk in during practice would mean seeing girls with their legs straight up in front of them, while another girl would be holding the leg up and pushing it towards her partner's face. Other girls would be on the floor practicing straddle splits to stretch out hamstring muscles and hips to their capacity. Girls would also be drilling their steps to 8 counts during the breaks. Perfectionism was mandatory to be a successful step-at dancer. Let's take it from the top. 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom, pop, kick, turn, kick and bop and stop. Amazing job, Lillian. Carol, pay attention. Sophia had no poker face. Lillian was her favorite, and that was that. Since her parents died in a hurricane when she was 16, Lillian put all of her energy into dance. She wholly breathed dance. She would go to great lengths to succeed at dance. Lillian lied about her age and everything else and moved to New York to join the Step-Ets. Meeting requirements was not difficult for Lillian. She ate what she wanted and always weighed in at 130 pounds, no matter what. She was an even 5'8", and that wasn't changing anytime soon either. Lillian's equilibrium and presence were second to none. They came naturally to her. As a preteen, her tante Aurélie made her walk with encyclopedias balanced on her head. "A young lady has to walk with superlative posture," her aunt would say. Lillian was fit as a fiddle from her youth. Triathlons, 100-yard dashes, chin-up and push-up contests against her boy cousins back in Pecan Grove, all summer long, every year. Although she could roll athletically with the best of them, her appearance always remained ladylike and might have been considered girly if you didn't really know her. Maybe it was due to the fact that Lillian was an only child who desperately wanted to please both of her parents. Her mother and grand-mère stitched the most glorious dresses for her, for any and every occasion. If Lillian wanted an outfit that had no pattern from which to cut it out, she would simply draw what she wanted and name the fabric and color, and the ones Mama couldn't make happen, her grand-mère did. Lillian knew how to wear a dress or a suit with fierce, exquisite style and a formal gown with delicate elegance. Her mama thrived watching how magnificent her daughter always looked in her fabulous, homemade, but not homemade-looking couture. Her mama would always ask, "Francie, did you see the shape on that girl when she left this house in that dress?" Lillian's daddy always responded with, "Yeah, Claudette." He probably hadn't ever seen Lillian leave, because that would require him looking away from the television set. Once he settled in for the night in front of the TV set, that was usually it. There would be nothing else on his mind. At the same time, her daddy had no son to play catch with. So there was Lillian, oiling her glove and throwing more than a baseball. She could give a quarterback a run for his money with the pigskin. Her dad taught her to swing a hammer, install a toilet, prune a tree, and more. Oftentimes, you could find Lillian and Daddy out back having picked a pecan from the tree, competing to see who had the keenest eye. Their targets were innocent lizards hanging out atop the chain-linked fence. The lizards were always there, and Daddy and Lil were always eating pecans. The shells were always empty and being hummed sharply at the poor little green fellows, who would soar unsuspectingly downward from the fence when hit. They never died. They would simply get disoriented and right back on the fence. Daddy usually won, but Lil could aim better than most. She and her daddy would go to the racetrack together and bet on horses. She always bet on the gray horse to win and the lightest weight jockey to show. Her unscientific strategy often proved lucrative for Lillian and her daddy. Now, those are simply memories, and Lillian was miles away from home, years away from the last time she saw her parents, and living a total lie. Well, not a complete lie. She missed her parents like crazy, but there was some sense of solace, peace, and relief. Living away meant Lillian no longer had to please anyone or strive in desperation to prove herself worthy of anyone's love. With her parents, she felt incessantly compelled to manage the feelings of each, so neither would feel she loved the other more. She was living for herself now, by herself, and doing that one thing she was 100% passionate about. Dance was so easy, freeing, and satisfying to Lillian. Dance was her only reality, her whole identity. Dance was also hurting her feet, the one part of Lillian that wasn't so pretty. They were badly scarred. Sophia worked the girls so hard that Lillian kept multiple sores and blisters on her feet at all times. Sophia also never gave them time to nurse their feet with gauze, salve, or medical tape. She was a you deal with it type of dance coach. Rehearsals were tedious and exhausting, like any full-time job, but they were the perfect distraction for the mind of a young, sheltered girl so far away from home and all the people and semi-peculiar culture she had come to know as normal. Having no brothers or sisters, Lillian had an extreme connection with her first cousin, Robert. Robert LeBlanc and she were raised closely. They had other cousins around their ages, but Robert and Lillian were inseparable and uninterested in the concerns of the other cousins. As children, Robert and Lillian had a strong resemblance, almost like twins. Not even her twin cousin Bobby knew where Lillian ran off to when she started her new life in New York City. Bobby was away in Vietnam, serving his tour with the Army when Lillian left. Lillian never felt comfortable in the environment of her youth in the town of Pecan Grove. She innately disagreed with much of its culture and traditions, and was annoyed at the thought of staying there for life. Although she simply adored her relatives, their values and belief systems countered her own. The very foundation and origin story of the town of Pecan Grove made her insides boil over with anger. She loathed the story that they told of the town being birthed through Alona Thoreau. Lillian felt as though her exponentially great-great-grandmother's genes dwelled inside her and caused her to be rebellious. The young girl, Alona, was removed from her parents against her will and forced to live a life she didn't choose, and Lillian's relatives boasted this story as some sort of badge of honor, all because she birthed a town. Did they ever once consider the exponentially great-great-grandfather's wife? He was married, by the way, when he was making all those babies with Alona. Lil was frequently unsettled at the thought of this family history and the town, and the way she felt growing up. She sensed a spirit of anti-female in the town and elected not to be there. She knew having a rewarding career was not a true option for her in Pecan Grove. The assumption would be that she would get married and raise her husband's children. She could work, but not some remarkably fabulous career like dance. "That's it for today. 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow," Sophia blurted to the girls. Lillian retreated each night to the woman-only residence, which housed approximately 100 young ladies who all lived on their own. These homes for women, popular in the 1800s and early 1900s, were still a well-used housing option in large cities during the 1960s. Each room contained a single bed, nightstand, lamp, and dresser. If you were lucky, your room came with a closet, too. In each of the rooms was the same drab wallpaper of a faded pink floral print on an off-white background, so dreadful and dismal. The floors, old pine wood, were creaky and unstable. There was one bathroom on each floor. No bathrooms in anyone's bedroom. Meals were served at specified times in the kitchen downstairs. The food was always bland to the taste, non-existent to the smell, hard and plastic to the touch, and often had a dry appearance. Many girls kept a hot plate, which was technically not allowed, in their rooms to warm up a can of beans in case of an emergency. They missed the meal due to tardiness or a lack of desire to eat what was being served. Lillian had been on her own since 1959, and it was now 1962. This particular evening, Lillian stopped at the corner pharmacy to pick up a bottle of cough syrup to alleviate her scratchy throat. She had a second job, but was off on this night. A lady in the same aisle interrupted Lillian's silent thoughts by interjecting, "Lemon and honey would be a healthier choice. It works faster, too." The young woman spoke in broken English. Lillian looked up and smiled at the lady and laughed as she spoke. "Mama used to say that, too. She always said home remedies are better than man-made drugs. Hi, I'm Lillian." She extended her hand in the handshake position. "My name is Wa. It means flower." Then the young woman smiled back at Lillian. Wa was extremely pregnant. Before she could tell Wa thank you, and it was swell to meet her, Lillian observed a man in uniform walking up behind Wa. He placed his hand on what was previously Wa's waist and began to show her the blank stationery paper he found to write a letter of sympathy on. His and Lillian's eyes connected, and with no words at all, they were drawn to each other, like two magnets in close proximity, and embraced tighter than if they had each discovered the other was alive after being dead for 3 solid years. "Bobby?" "Lou." Bobby never called Lillian by her full name, as she so formally refers to herself now. All the people from her hometown called her Lou. Wa asked in complete confusion, "Is this your sister?" Bobby and Lou chuckled at the same time. The same dimple in the same place on each one's face emerged. What made it more distinct was that the dimple was not in the typical spot where most people have dimples. Their dimples were higher up on the cheek. Bobby stated, "My favorite cousin in the whole world. We grew up like siblings." "Siblings?" Wa questioned as she was still learning English. "Yeah, siblings means we would be brother and sister," Bobby responded.